how did you personally get in touch with Greg and decide that this was the story that you wanted to tell?
Oh, I read an article, a New York Times article about Greg getting back involved with diving, and I thought, getting back involved with diving, why was he away from diving?
Right.
And I thought there must be a story here, and I reached out to Cheryl, who had made a great film about synchronized swimming, a documentary.
Sink or swim?
Sink or swim, and we had gone to school together, and I said, hey, read this article. I think there's something here, there's something up. Why would Greg be away from diving? There's probably a story here. And then we reached out to Greg, and that's the movie.
And Greg, so you're a public figure. Your story has been out there. How did you decide that you would entrust your story, your life, with these people?
Well, Cheryl sent me Sink or Swim,
Okay.
and a lot of my dear friends are synchronized swimmers, so I knew that I would be, sympathetic, but synchronized swimming gets a hard rap.
Yeah.
That's a sport. But I know how athletic it is, and having some friends, and she did such an incredible job just showing, the tenacity of those athletes and hanging in there, and I just really admired that work, and so that's what brought me on board.
Excellent. And was there anything for you, Greg, and for Ron as well, was there anything that you were worried about being misrepresented or anything like that? Was there anything off limits in terms of the story being told?
No, ever since working with Eric Marcus, oh my God, that was interesting, that whole process. But he left no stone unturned, and I thought in that process that I was sharing my weaknesses because it wasn't real manly. A lot of the things that I had to share, but what I learned on the book tour, because he was on book tour with me, it was very, very emotional. And I learned that by sharing my weaknesses, I was actually sharing my strengths. And so that was kind of the starting point with working in the film. There was nothing that was off limits, and made myself available. We got a lot of stuff, and we talked about, it could have been a mini-series. Because, my acting, they were around for my acting, they were around for my dog agility, they were around for so many different other areas of my life. But we were confined to a short time space, so.
And Ron?
Well, my only concern was how the whole 1988 Olympic scenario would be received. And as far as I know right now, it's been received well. You could ask questions about whether it was right or not.
Right.
If he had been a wrestler or a boxer, it would have been a totally different story. And I felt that he wasn't taking performance-enhancing drugs, he was taking anti-performance-enhancing drugs. And I felt he earned the right to earn his place in history.
Absolutely. So if you can talk, Greg and Ron, about sort of your relationship, given how Greg talked about sort of the lack of a father figure in his life, and that's sort of what Ron was for you. And did you stay in touch after you stopped working together?
Yeah, okay, when I first went to Ron O'Brien's diving camp when I was 15 in Decatur, Alabama. And I was only 15, and I was really welcomed almost like a member of the team at age 15. And so that was incredible. And that was really the stepping stone for me in making that 1976 Olympic team. I was training with Dr. Sammy Lee, but he wasn't a full-time coach. So that was the start. And like I said in the film, he was the god of diving. And then, whatever he said, I'd jump, whatever he said, I would do. And over time, then he became more of a father figure, to me, that I looked up to, that I didn't want to disappoint. So I always put, my best effort forward. And then we became friends, over that period of time. Having so many different experiences at major competitions, Pan American Games, World Championships. Sometimes I had the good fortune of being his only diver at some of the competitions, and so I kind of had him to myself, and it was really, really wonderful. And we just, our respect, love, and admiration grew. And in order to get through 1988 with everything that was going on, because Ron had his own stuff that was going on through '88, and so I knew that I couldn't have gotten through it without him, most definitely. And he chose to stay by my side, and we got through. And it was through that love, devotion, and trust for each other, that we were able to be as successful as we were.
I'd just like to say yes. We have stayed in touch. We are still in touch. When we started out, I was more like the taskmaster. I was his coach. Then over time, I tried to establish a trust with him, because I think back in those days at his age, he didn't really trust many people, and he didn't say anything. You'd ask him a question, he'd say yes or no, and that was it. You didn't get anything else out of him. And I remember one day he was moody in practice out in Mission Viejo. And after the practice was over, I brought him in my office. I said, "Sit down, Greg. What's going on? What's wrong?" And he gives me the Gary Cooper, nothing. Nope. And I said, "You're not leaving this office until you tell me what's going on." And I meant it. And he sat there for a while, and then he finally opened up and started telling me he was having problems. He was working 2 jobs. He was trying to train. He couldn't keep up with the schedule. He was dead tired. So I said, "Okay, we'll change that." So I changed it. And things got a lot better, and I think he started to trust me then. And then I was able to kind of get inside his head and find out all the issues that he was dealing with and try to help him to deal with them in a bit more positive way.
Yeah, the question from Greg's husband, Johnny,
Yes.
was
the
to
dog.
me about, and Dobby, with support from Dobby, is about to me about my relationship with Greg and how that developed. So I mean, I think one of the things that was surprising to me at first, I mean, knowing Greg now, it's not as surprising. But when Will and I called him and said, "Well, we're really interested in making this movie. These are all the reasons why." And Greg said, we said, "Well, what are you up to these days?" And he told us, "So I've got this kids diving camp. It's coming up." And we said, "Well, can we shoot that?" And he's like, "Sure, that'd be great." And so we're like, "I guess we're making this movie, because that's all right, it's happening," which is great. And so when we first started to get together, Greg, he is very, very open and very honest in so many ways. And I think the very first time we interviewed, I was like, "We're getting the most amazing sound bites ever. This is incredible." But he's been sharing his story for so many years that I think it took a little while to for us to find our rhythms together, and for us to get past the the soundbite versions of some of these things. Because I think someone like Greg, who's such a professional, can sit down and give the most amazing answers you've ever heard, and then you feel like a very special documentary filmmaker. You're like, "I'm getting these great interviews, from Greg Louganis. It's amazing." And then you're doing your archival research, and you're like, "He said these things before." And you feel a little less special. But then the more you get to know him, and the more time you spend together, which I think happens to everyone in any profession who's in the spotlight, is that you can only answer a question so many ways. And so it did take, to answer Johnny's question, I think it just took us spending more time together, and we spent a lot of time on the phone together. So when we couldn't be out shooting, we would just be chatting and chatting and chatting to figure out what we should be shooting, and getting to know each other that way. So it took time, I think, to find our rhythms beyond I think Greg seeing me as a reporter.
Right.
So but we got there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what is
And
it like
today, I don't know, Greg. I don't know. It feels like we're a family.
Yeah, we're a family. Definitely. I mean, I used to joke. I mean, she was my therapist. I was like, "Oh my God, Cheryl, guess what happened today? You'll never believe." So I mean, she was always somebody that I could, talk to, and we'd kind of hash through things and all that. And I mean, and the entire crew. I mean, everybody was just so wonderful. It didn't feel intrusive at all. I mean, they all became a part of the family. So I really appreciate that.